welcome to the Boxing Media Hub Fighter Series Ep.3, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, here in the United States. And today, Episode 3 is regards to the fighter who pulled off the colossal upset 35 years ago today in Tokyo, Japan. That happens to be none other than James Buster Douglas. Few fight fans, you know what he did 35 years ago? Shocked the world when he knocked out Mike Tyson to win the undisputed heavyweight championship as a 42-1 underdog. But I'm going to touch more on his career that nobody talks about because everybody still remembers the Tyson fight and among many other things. He was a very standout fighter, a 6'4", 200, right around between 225 and 245 throughout most of his career. A very inconsistent career, but had the gifts and the talents to do something with it. Trained out of a gym in Columbus, Ohio, where his father, Billy Dynamite Douglas, who was a standout fighter himself back in the late 60s and early 70s, and was pushing James Buster Douglas to get to heights where Billy himself couldn't get to during his days as a fighter. Now, of course, Buster Douglas's career was sort of inconsistent in the beginning. Did manage to get a nice winning streak, beat Greg Page some point in '87 to get a title shot against Tony Tucker for one of the belts, and as a part of the HBO Undisputed Championship Tourney Series to condense the belts to become a one unified heavyweight champion. He was in control of that fight, showed his ability, but out of nowhere, he showed his inconsistency as he was unable to finish the job, and Tucker got the 10th round knockout win to win the heavyweight title at that point. And at that point, question was whether actually Buster Douglas had it in him, because he had the fight in control. He was winning the fight, beating a very good fighter in Tony Tucker, but out of nowhere, he gassed out, and Tucker just took over, and the fight was stopped at the end of the 10th round. But at that point, Buster Douglas started to make changes, brought in a new management team, a new trainer. He got on another winning streak, got a couple decent wins, beat Oliver McCall and sort of a de facto title eliminator to get the shot at Mike Tyson. At the time, McCall was a very solid heavyweight. Douglas won that one rather convincingly on the Mike Tyson, Carl the Truth Williams non-televised undercard fight on HBO, and which propelled Douglas, of course, to the title shot that took place 35 years ago today against Mike Tyson. Now, we know the backlog with this. He signed the fight to Tyson, was viewed basically as an opponent, 42-1 underdog, basically given no chance. But this was the opportunity his father, Billy Dynamite Douglas, was pushing for Buster to get, because he never got this opportunity. Buster Douglas advanced further than what his father did and got to this point, and by getting the Tyson fight was farther than anything his dad ever got. Not even his dad could foresee this happening to him or even his son. But of course, we know the tragedy that took place 23 days before that fight. It was his mom, Lula Pearl Douglas, died of a stroke in her mid-40s. They offered Douglas to cancel the fight, which he refused. He wanted to go on. He got himself in the best shape possibly he ever got himself into for this particular fight. Actually, there were images of him jogging in freezing weather in Columbus, Ohio, weeks before the fight, especially talking about the temperatures in Ohio in late January. He got himself down to 231 pounds, which, weight for himself was inconsistent because he never had a steady weight throughout his entire career. So as he prepared for the Tyson fight, his focus was better than ever, even after his mom's passing. Got himself in the best condition, best shape possible, weighed to the tune of 231 pounds. Went into that fight basically with everything to gain and nothing to lose. I mean, the guy just lost his mom 3 weeks ago, was a 42-1 underdog, and basically just went into this with not being afraid of the so-called baddest man on the planet. And the potential we always talked about with Buster Douglas came on full display on that night in Tokyo. I mean, his ability to use the jab, the 1-2, his ability to utilize the ring, his natural gifts as a 6'4" heavyweight with an 82-inch reach, his ability to utilize it and maximize it, played to perfection as he was able to basically do anything and everything he wanted to Mike Tyson for the better half of the 7.5 rounds of this fight. And of course, the mistake Douglas made was he dropped his guard for a second, gets floored by the uppercut in round 8, but he was able to beat the count, and go back to his corner. Luckily, the bell was able to save Buster Douglas to allow him to recoup even more. So he can come back out in round 9 and basically just started to pummel Mike Tyson. Actually, halfway through the round, that left-right combination, and now you're seeing Mike Tyson wobbled against the ropes. And Buster Douglas's momentum really took over. His intensity really just started to show, and he started to seize a moment and started to go for the kill, knowing that this baddest man on the planet, the so-called invincible force, was basically breaking down and is being broken down and beaten down as we go along. As you know, the eye of Mike Tyson swelled to the size of a golf ball due to the large number of left jabs and right crosses Buster Douglas landed all night. And of course, you go to round 10 where the climax, took its high point and ended, where Buster Douglas is peppered in with the jab, again, measuring the smaller Tyson out, utilizing that 6'4", 200-plus pound frame, that 82-inch reach, utilizing that jab. And as soon as Mike Tyson stood still, the second Mike tried to come in, a perfectly timed uppercut, and Mike Tyson was basically it. Lefts and rights have followed. Tyson's on the canvas, down and out for the count. Ref, as Mike Tyson is on all fours looking for his mouthpiece, ref's counting. By the time Tyson gets it, he gets up. Referee counts 10. Fight's over, and there is a new undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. That particular fight 35 years ago today was just symbolic of what Buster Douglas could have been, because he had that immense talent, especially when you consider the pedigree he had, the training background he had, and the natural gifts he had to be actually something special had he put it all together. And he showed it on this night against Mike Tyson. Again, the issue was the guy, it was debatable whether his heart was in it or not, but his career was, other than this, was basically marred by inconsistency, because he would have one fight where he looks terrifically great and then another fight where you just wanted to throw things at him. Of course, it was symbolic here again. He beats Mike Tyson, show the world that he was the greatest thing to ever happen to the sport, at least perception-wise, because what he did to Mike Tyson was absolutely phenomenal. Fought the near-perfect fight he could probably fight outside of the 8th round where he was floored in. But then, of course, 8.5 months later, he loses his title to Evander Holyfield in a case where the bad habits again show themselves. He ballooned up to 246 pounds, came into the fight rather lethargic and not into it, was basically humiliated and knocked out in the 3rd round. And at that point, he basically just took some indefinite time out. It was perceived as a retirement, but he took the time out, because he had all the personal issues outside of the ring on top of what happened that night against Evander Holyfield. Of course, it was kind of called the diabetic coma, ballooned his weight over 400 pounds and was toying with death. Was forced to come back in the mid-90s, had a decent stretch for a minute where he actually put himself back in the top 10 rankings. It was lining up for a title shot against Lennox Lewis, but he fought a journeyman named Lou Savarese at the back end of 1998, was floored 4 times in the 1st round, and was basically the end of the line for James Buster Douglas. He never will get another shot at the title. And again, another case of, it was a damn quality fight. It definitely is. But this fight was, what's going on? Shout out to you. It's just a synopsis of what Buster Douglas's career, and he did shock the world that night. Actually, it's probably shocked the entire world at all levels. You could say not just boxing, maybe all sports, maybe all kinds of pop culture. When you consider the fact that, this guy was supposed to be the most invincible force perception-wise, and Buster Douglas just broke him, battered him, and just destroyed him. Forget about the judges' scorecards, because 2 of the judges were idiots who somehow had Mike Tyson winning. Buster Douglas won every round except the 8th round, and he won them basically convincingly going away. What can you say? This guy was supposed to be the next name on Mike Tyson's hit list. Mike Tyson wouldn't have it. Buster Douglas wouldn't have it, and you saw what happened as a result. But basically, this fight was symbolic of what James Buster Douglas could have been had he decided to stay on the work ethic that he genuinely had, like he showed for this fight against Mike Tyson. Had all the talent in the world, obviously, but never could put it together rather consistently. And of course, we talked about the loss to Holyfield was basically the two fights with Tyson and Holyfield was symbolic of what Buster Douglas was. An immensely talented fighter who had natural gifts and basically could really put it together when he wanted to, had stretches of it, especially in the beginning. Before the Tyson fight, that he showed it. Never, you could probably say never reached that point of the fullest potential. But the Mike Tyson fight was probably the perfect case of a fighter when you could put it all together on one night. Doesn't matter who the opponent is. It doesn't matter who you are. Any given night, anybody could be beat. 35 years ago today, James Buster Douglas proved it. That's why forever and ever, when the calendar marks February 11th, everybody in the boxing world should just mark it as James Buster Douglas Day, because that day certainly belonged to James Buster Douglas. Who would I like to see Douglas take on? Anyone he didn't box? There's no way out. I mean, the only guy he had at the time was Holyfield, because Holyfield was the mandatory contender. I mean, that's a fight that had to happen. I mean, he could have had maybe a voluntary defense in there probably, but the problem was after he beat Tyson, the Tyson camp filed a protest because of the so-called long counter at the 8th round, which, the whole thing was just an absolute farce of a protest, and it was thrown away eventually because nobody bought into it. And of course, there was a supposed breach of contract between Buster Douglas and Don King, which that's why Buster Douglas got paid an extra $4 million on top of the $20 million he got for the Holyfield fight. But it got strung out because the governing bodies, Mike Tyson and Don King, didn't want let Buster Douglas have his moment in the sun because of the stupid protest. Maybe he should have had a voluntary defense before the Holyfield fight, but because of everything that happened outside of the ring after the fight with Don King and Mike Tyson, that's why everything wound up happening the way it did. So, but as I said, nothing anybody can do, anybody can say, can take away the moment that February 11th will forever be James Buster Douglas Day, especially in the boxing world, because what he did February 11th, 1990 in Tokyo, Japan, the boxing world is never going to forget. What more can you say? I mean, I focus more on the Buster Douglas angle because everybody knows about the Tyson angle a little too much. We need to focus more on what this man had to go through, losing his mom, also having the mother of his child in the baddest health, getting himself in the best shape possible to pull off what he pulled off, and the garbage that Don King and Mike Tyson pulled after the fight with the protests and trying to strip him of belts. The man went through a lot during that period, and I mean a lot. You got to at least tip your hat up and salute to James Buster Douglas. February 11th will forever be James Buster Douglas Day.